Hey everybody, I'm That One Guy, and I wanted to create a series of videos to go over the Weakauras I've created. The whole purpose of the Weakauras is obviously to help you better understand your spec and hopefully help you play better as a result, but also to gamify the game. Because WoW does present you with some spell alerts for the specs you play, but not all. And so that leaves you looking for ways to identify if a certain buff or debuff is active. And that's where Weakauras can come in play. And I wanted to do more than just have an icon with a timer in it, right? I wanted to try to present you with visual effects that make it feel more like a video game and immerse you more into the spec you're playing. At least that's the idea. So in these videos, I'm going to go over the Weakauras I've created, how I intend for them to work, and show you how you can modify them if you'd like. So whether you've already found my Weakauras, or you're looking for some for a certain spec, or you just want to have a better idea of how Weakauras work in general, hopefully these videos will help you with that. Resto Druid, the last of my druids, and again, like all my healers, I do them a little differently in that there is more visible on your screen at all times. Just begin, again, as a healer, it's easier, better to know what you do or don't have rather than, you know, having a proc flash up that maybe you're going to hang on to for a while. So there are still some procs, you'll see, but a lot of the abilities and cooldowns and such are just icons. And as I say in every single healer video I do, maybe I'll feel convicted and get around to making, you know, more texturized, pretty Weakauras and such to symbolize the abilities. But for now, this is what I got. So again, like everything, this would be all the stuff that's all on your screen all at the same time, but obviously it's not going to be all there all at the same time, except for what you saw from the rotational and major cooldowns. I'll do everything and then come back to the 2 hero talent related things at the end. So the major cooldowns will all pop up right there. Star Surge is not a major cooldown, but it's just something that I wanted to track and have the rest of the Weakura be symmetrical. So I already had 2 things on left and right, and so I just wanted to throw that DPS cooldown right there. But otherwise it's Invigorate, Nature's Swiftness, Iron Bark, that's Star Surge. If you're talented into Overgrowth, you'd see it there. Flourish, this would be Tree of Life or Convoke. It's on choice nodes, or one or the other, and then Tranquility. And it's all of the things in here, right? And so as you're talented into them, they will load and move. Like if you're not talented into Flourish, but you are talented into Overgrowth, Overgrowth actually moves a little over. If you don't like all of those, it's this group called Druid Major CDs. You could just right click and delete Children in Group and they would all go away. Or you could go to the Load tab and check the Never box. Or if you didn't want those to show up unless you're in combat, you come here and press this In Combat button. Now they won't show until you activate combat with something, right? What I found is that as I was going through M+, is you will drop combat and re-enter combat pretty frequently. It's great in raid because you just stay in combat the whole time, but in M+, you drop and re-enter, and that got kind of annoying between toggling between being able to look right here, knowing what I had or what was coming up, versus having to then look all the way down here. So that's why it's set to always show. And just always be present is just for ease of information. And quick little note, if you have it red, this means it will only show out of combat, which would be the opposite of what you want to do. All right, and then same thing for the rotational CDs. These are just the things that I thought would be most important for Druid, if they have a cooldown or not. This is just, this tracks your dot for Moonfire, right? So if you have Moonfire present, it'll be that little purplish blue box going around Swiftmend. If it's not present, obviously it won't be there. Life Bloom, there's 2 here because if you're talented into Undergrowth, this just tracks the second one. That's kind of, there's probably another way I could do it and maybe put a box around this one, but I'll need someone to verify that that works. That's supposed to, this would track the first one you put out and this will track the second one you put out. And what they do is they're red. You probably saw when I was loading up, they're red when they're not active on anybody, so your life bloom will be red if it's not out, and then it'll turn orange at 4 seconds or under, letting you know you can refresh it, right? And then this would be Grove Guardians, showing your charges and cooldowns. Look, there it is, turning orange. Ta-da! And that would be when you'd want to refresh it. Swiftmend, right? Its cooldown, and Wild Growth and its cooldown, right? It tracks those things right there. This is a rejuve bar, and what I mean by that is on your raid frames or party frames, and I use cell, so I don't know that it functions with anything else. I don't know that it functions with the base raid UI or Blizz UI that they have for their dungeons and raid frames, but I know it functions with cell. And so when someone has rejuve on them, it puts that pink bar right there. I found that a lot easier, just to be able to look across. I use it for atonement on my disc priest, and just be able to look at all of the raid frames and party frames, especially raid frames when you're raiding with 20 people in Mythic or up to 30 in Heroic, and just being able to see who has it on them and who doesn't, and it turns red when there's 4 seconds or less, right? Being able to quickly identify, rather than trying to see amongst all of the hots that are present on them, right? If one of them is rejuve, and then how long is left on that rejuve, and if you want to leave it or refresh it. So this just lets me see pretty easily, do they or do they not, and how close is it to expiring. So that's that little rejuve bar is. And then clear casting is, it stacks up to 2 times, right? So up to 2 stacks of clear casting. This is another thing where I know that they provided you with it, but if it went up to 2, I don't think it showed you. You just had the same spell alert, whether you had 1 stack or 2 stacks. Could do something different if you wanted. Instead of taking up more screen real estate, could just have that first set just change colors if you had 2 stacks, right? So if that's a preference, that'd be pretty easy to change or do, and just change these two to be, you know, have a condition set to when stacks is greater than 1, that they're orange or red or blue or whatever you'd want it to do, or a darker green. So if you'd rather do that than have a second set of images, that's possible, but right now that's how you'll see it when it stacks up to 2. Efflorescence, how it works is if the buff from efflorescence is not active, there will be those pink little flowers on your screen. All right, and if it is active, they won't be there. So just kind of a signal to you as to push that button. You'll see it progressing because it was a progress texture showing you that when efflorescence was active, it was ticking down to letting you know when it wasn't. But I feel like noticing something on your screen telling you to push a button is a lot easier informationally than not noticing something on your screen and realizing that means you're supposed to push a button. Especially because, again, I had a buddy who said he didn't ever notice it up there, especially if you are looking at everything down here and raid frames and stuff down here. Maybe you don't see it. I feel like as you're playing, you'd notice. But again, that's why I opted for, you know, hey, pink flowers that tell me efflorescence is not down, right? And then when it is down, it's gone. It doesn't tell you if you're standing in it or if people are standing in it, literally just if you've cast it or not, and then it's going to be up to your eyeballs to tell if people are in it. Can add a feature that does kind of let you know if people are in it. I can figure out how to do that, I think, but right now it's just if it's active or not, and then you'll have to try to be mindful of if you need to move it yourself, which you can do because it doesn't have a cooldown. So that's efflorescence. Then you've got Soul of the Forest, right? Which is something you always get, but going with a video game thing, right? It's not necessarily a proc because you'll always get it after you cast Swiftman. But just again, video game type stuff, visual feedback. You press Swiftman, you get a buff from that. That's letting you know, hey, that buff that you expected to get, yeah, you do have it, right? And it's going to apply to the next blank that you do. Power of the Archdruid is a proc, right? So you can get it from casting your Wild Growth. So whenever you do have Power of the Archdruid, that will pop up on your screen, letting you know that your next rejuve is going to spread to other targets. If you're talented into Cenarion Ward, this is where I, run out of stuff because of symmetry. I guess I could put that as a little tiny thing underneath the Grove Guardians, maybe. And then same thing with Invigorate. Both of them have pretty short cooldowns, and so I was like, all right, I don't know if you're going to use them on cooldown, and if not, that might be where I need to try to figure out how I want to display them down here. But for now, they're just these two symbols. Cenarion Ward is this one. When it's off cooldown, that'll pop up on your screen, and then Invigorate, when it's off cooldown, if you're talented into them, that'll pop up on your screen. And Reforestation, right after 4 Swiftmans, the 4th one, you turn into a tree. So this tracks 1, 2, 3, letting you know that your next Swiftman is going to turn you into a tree if you're talented into Reforestation. And then just a mana bar and a cast bar. And then 2 things that I originally left out and just quickly added would just be a timer letting you know how long you're in your Incarn, right, your Tree of Life for, and then same thing for Flourish. maybe you don't necessarily need to know, but I think that's just kind of a nice to know thing, is letting you know that, hey, you activated Flourish, right? And then this is how much longer is left on that. But that's it. That's everything for the basic things. When you go into the hero talents, I'm just tracking Keeper of the Grove. I didn't see anything that I needed to be aware of for Wildstalker. Maybe you disagree. If so, let me know. What will be your Dream Surges that you get from casting your Grove Guardians, 1, 2, 3. And then Blooming Infusions is a two-part thing. You have one, right, that this is the one that gives you the instant cast Wrath, right, after you've cast so many regrowths. If it's orange, right, that autumn color, this means you have an instant cast Wrath. And then if it's green, right, then that means you have the instant cast and free regrowth. So that's how those two things work, right? It sounds to me like, yeah, as you use your free instant cast Wraths, that will eventually give you a free instant cast regrowth. So that's how the Blooming Infusion thing works. Those are the only two things that I'm really tracking from the hero talents. Those are the only two things that I felt like might be slightly impactful to your gameplay. But other than that, I will show you very clunkily what it might look like as you're playing the spec. So this would be when your life bloom is not present on anybody, right? And it won't necessarily work on these because they're not in a group with me. What it's going to do is look for that buff inside the group. There is your clear casting regrowths. And then it'll turn orange when it's under 4 seconds, so you can refresh it. All right, that's how that works. Swiftman, right, is pretty simple. There's your Soul of the Forest buff, and we got Power of the Archdruid, right? That's it. That's how those things work. And then there is a clear casting proc that you'd be used to. There is what I was just talking about with your Blooming Infusion, letting you know you can do the Wrath, right? And there is, again, still letting me know, now that I'm in combat, again, that doesn't mean that my efflorescence is down. It's just something that will only show when I'm in combat, and I can change that, but that pops up when you're in combat and when efflorescence is not active. This is letting you know you've got Moonfire on your target if that's something you're going to want to keep track of. See, there's your Star Surge going on cooldown. But that's pretty much it. As you use your Grove Guardians, there's your ticks for your Dream Surge, right? Your next stuff is going to add those little flower petals, right? Just, is it super impactful? Anything that you have to play around or know? Not necessarily, right? Just kind of a nice thing, right? And there I am with my efflorescence being able to go down. My life bloom isn't on anybody, so it's red. I see I have one more charge of my Grove Guardians, right? On and on that goes. As you use Convoke, right? It's just that there. That orange tick is part of the GCD, letting you know that you could cast, right? That's when you can queue up your next cast. There we have Soul of the Forest again. If I did Flourish, hey look, and Power of the Archdruid. If I did Flourish, it would look like that, and that's just letting you know how long that buff is active for on yourself as well as your other party members, and the minute it goes away, no more Flourish power for you. Efflorescence, voila. All right, that's it, right? There isn't anything else super special about it, right? There's your Rejuve bar, letting you know that you have Rejuve active on your target, right? That's what it's tracking. If you run into any issues with anything, like something's not working as it's intended or how it's supposed to, let me know. But otherwise, that's it, right? If you're talented in other stuff like Overgrowth, you'll see that. If you're talented to Undergrowth, you'll have the 2 life blooms that are supposed to be tracking it on 2 targets and showing you the same kind of color stuff. Again, efflorescence, push the button. But as always, I'm open to feedback. If you feel I left anything out, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, I hope you like it and have fun. Again, I hope you found that helpful. I do intend to make a Weakura pack for every spec. So if I haven't made one for the spec that you play or that you'd like to see, just comment that down below. Again, I do intend to make one for every spec, but if I see people asking for it or really wanting one, I'll probably get to it quicker than if I just do it on my slow, leisurely pace. I hope it will enhance your gameplay. Like I said, it's all about gamifying the game and making it more fun and more immersive for you, while also helping you improve as a player because the information that you need to react to is hopefully more readily available. If you have any other questions about this Weakura pack that you just watched or any other ones, again, please feel free to comment. I try to be as interactive as possible in my YouTube section. And that's it. I hope you have a great day.